Welcome back to That Atleti Podcast. Jeremy, Beren, and Ricky Menéndez here with you, the best Atleti podcast in the land, back in your ears and on your screens. We have a special guest today, man. We are joined by Nic Obregón, writer and Atleti fan, Nick, we've been in discussions for the last, I think, month or so trying to get you on the show. So I'm really glad that this worked out. It's great to have you on board, man. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, like I've been watching the work that you guys have been doing. So, and there's a space for this. So it's been so nice to be able to watch that and to come on board for the night. It's a real pleasure, man. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, man. How you came to support this incredible club and the work you do.
Yeah, so I'm an author. I write crime novels, basically. I make podcasts. That's what I do for a living. And then in terms of Atleti, well, so like I'm a total mutt. My mum is French Irish, but she's from London. My dad is Spanish. I kind of grew up between the two, right? Which is obviously why I sound like this. But yeah, I grew up between London and Madrid, and always went back and forth. The way that I lived Atleti was sometimes at a distance and sometimes very close. But yeah, I've been back full time in Spain for about 3-4 years now, and yeah, I go every week to the cathedral, and I'm there in row 6 for better or for worse.
So Jeremy, let me figure out your mental process here. So you felt like killing somebody for the defensive performance of last week, and you said, "How many murder novelists do we know? How many murder crime stories can we summon to follow with the vibe of this week's latest poor defensive performance?"
I mean, put it this way: if in my next book someone is murdered horribly and their first name is Clément, then Clément or Nawel, or whichever way you want to go, is history there.
I couldn't possibly start to guess the inspiration behind that. Right. I couldn't venture a guess. Well, Nick, again, great to have you here, and we've got a lot on the agenda today. We have the Celta Vigo game from last weekend to discuss. Atleti are now on international break, but the football hasn't stopped. Beyond the players with their national teams, there's a friendly taking place in Libya against Inter Milan tomorrow night, Friday night, which I believe is going to be streamed on Inter's YouTube channel, not on Atletico's, because why would they? So we're going to talk about that. And in addition, we're going to go, I think, kind of long on the appointment of Mateu Alemany as Atletico's new sporting director. Big development, a front office restructuring in advance of the ownership change that, Ricky, you and I have been talking about for several weeks. But before we get into all that, Celta Balaídos on Sunday night, the final game of the round before the international break. And as I wrote on Into the Calderon this week, guys, the team that is best at kneecapping Atletico de Madrid and any momentum Atletico may or may not have found is Atletico de Madrid.
Okay. I thought you were going to say something Celta. I was saying, no, it's Atletico.
Atletico did this to themselves as
self-kneecapping.
We're kind of used to seeing, aren't we? Such a great week leading up to this game. 13 goals in 3 games, beating Real Madrid in the derby, and an incredible historic result, beating Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League. But of course, all 3 of these games, the Rayo comeback included, took place at the Metropolitano. So I wanted to see how Atletico were going to do on their travels. They head to Galicia on Sunday night. 0 for 4 on the road this season, and now 0 wins in 5. Nick, let's start with you. What were your takeaways from the Celta game? Lenglet or not?
Yeah, so I think the or not bit is almost kind of more significant, right? Like a player, your centre back gets sent off, it colours the rest of the game. Sure, right? That makes sense. 2 and 2 is 4. Beyond that, though, he didn't get sent off until the 40th minute, and we'd still only had 1 shot on target up until that point. I was thinking about the Leverkusen game a year prior, where Barrios gets sent off in the 25th minute, and we are up against Alonso's free balling team. That was a scary team that night to watch, right? And you think when Barrios gets the red, here we go, right? That night we had more shots on target, and okay, we were at home, but we showed more coraje, more grit that night against with all respect to Celta Vigo, a much superior team. With respect to Celta, they're not a fantastic side. So I think that 8 weeks in now, this is a fair measure of a team. And yes, there are bedding in periods, but we are bedding in a few new players. We're not bedding in a new manager. We're not bedding in, a whole new ethos. I mean, Cholo has been there, new players or not, since the year that Osama bin Laden is killed. Okay, so he's been there for a while, and a red card, I don't think that's enough for us to essentially roll over and play as meekly as we did. I think it's representative of where we are right now this season. The Real Madrid game aside, the Eintracht Frankfurt game aside, I think that felt more like us this year than 2 weeks ago, to be honest.
Sheesh, harsh but fair. I mean, I think that is more or less a fair assessment. And granted, we are still fairly early in the season. And Ricky, I'll get to you in a sec. You're chomping at the bit right now. But, we're 10 games in, 8 rounds in La Liga, and Atletico still have not won away from home. Like, you've turned over 14 new players have arrived in the last 2 years. That is extreme. That's an extreme kind of reformatting, rebooting of the team. But come on, man, Celta are in the drop zone. And for me, I don't know how many conclusions I personally can draw, having played 55 minutes, give or take, with 10 men against 11. But the first 40 minutes of this game, Atletico were, well, Nick, to borrow your parlance, meek. A lack of combination play, lack of associative play. It was like these players who were so in sync and demonstrating so much heart and so much grit and so much intensity in those 3 games at home, including El Derby, of course, the centerpiece of all that. That all went away at Balaidos, and that aspect of this game was very concerning to me.
Well, I'm going to take some words from those cool hot takes that you record right after matches. I guess this one must have been an especially difficult pill to swallow, to get in front of a camera after that annoying performance. And I think your exact words were something like an inexcusable performance, very poor performance by Atlético de Madrid. You led this conversation before asking Nick by talking about self-inflicted damage. But what I would really boil this down to is it surprising that we're going to have defensive problems with subpar defenders? I mean,
No.
In my opinion, Lenglet is old news. It's not something that I'm especially surprised whenever that's happening. So it's kind of like, I don't know, whenever you this season early on, we scored a goal and you were like counting down those 7 minutes until you got the equalizer. It's a little bit of a self-fulfilled prophecy. Playing. I'm going to put Lenormand into the sack. I don't know I don't know where that hype comes from, because for me, it's still your main job is to be a defender. And even though Lenormand has pulled off a more than decent performance, that's your job. I mean, it's now. Are we going to erect a statue to Lenormand because he had a good game? He's supposed to have 30 or 40 of these every season. So I'm still not getting on the Lenormand bandwagon. I don't think I will, at least this season. And if your 2 worst players and your biggest liabilities come in the figure of your central defenders, basically in modern football, you're screwed. If you go 1 player under and you're playing with 1 player less for a good hour, in elite football, you're basically screwed. They're going to find a way. Nick was saying it's only Celta Vigo, but it is a professional team, and they do know how to create those disadvantages and exploit those disadvantages. Borja Iglesias was especially aggressive as a player, and I think it was his role to be that aggressive, and he really read what his team needed very well. And Iago Aspas, when he came on, he was a game-changing kind of player. We did not get that game-changing attitude from Alexander Sorloth, for example, who is another one of these of this extra baggage that we're carrying this season. And if your best central defender is playing as left fullback, oh, that's the end of the analysis. I mean, I I really don't know what Atleti can do besides signing 3 central defenders in the winter transfer market. Otherwise, this is going to be a tale that is going to play on loop, and we're going to see it time and time again. 1 or 2 good performances, normally home games, and then you get the away screw up. And we already saw a lot of that happening last season. This is a little bit same old, same old. And from that point of view, yeah. If one of the biggest areas to exploit Atlético de Madrid's weaknesses is through the center of their defense, I would guess that you would want to have your best players there. So my guess is that Simeone, because of this crazy idea that he sees some sort of talent that I'm unable to see in Clément Lenglet, is willing to play him over Pubil, is willing to keep him despite these terrible performances, insists on having players that deliver good performances followed by very average ones. I think this is going to be a repetitive tale, and it's going to be something that is going to be happening time and time again.
How many away wins do Atletico have this year? I can answer that question. In calendar year 2025, Atletico have won 4 games away from home, guys. 4. That's it. Like, that's not acceptable for a club of this supposed elite caliber, this elite category. Ricky, you touched on David Hansko playing at left back. I'm really tired of this. This experiment with Hansko at left back needs to end. I'm not really sure what Simeone, it goes beyond Lenglet. What about Matteo Ruggeri? What is Simeone seeing or not seeing in Matteo Ruggeri that is preventing him from giving the Italian a run of games?
I'm guessing that he's seeing more vulnerability from Ruggeri than he estimates that Lenglet will have if Atletico are defending far away from their goal area. We talked about that during this fabulous 13-goal week. But the problem is that Lenglet doesn't even need to be close to the box to get into trouble. He goes out and finds trouble next to the sideline, next to the touchline. So that lack of football IQ, of being a smart and seasoned player, is something I'm just not seeing in Lenglet, and I cannot find anyone else to blame other than Simeone, and it's on him.
It's a gamble that Simeone 10 years ago, if Simeone of 2015 and Simeone of 2025 had met, like if they knew each other, Simeone of 2015 would be mortified at some of the things.
A current day Simeone, I would say, go back to your Godins and Mirandas and find someone else who can do that.
I mean, it's easy to say that. We don't have those figures right now. You know what Robin Lenormand should have done to Borja Iglesias in this game? He should have put him on his ass in the first 15 minutes. You're supposed to be the defensive leader, and you're a B-tier center back masquerading as a leader. And I'm not trying to disrespect Lenormand, who has, I guess, incrementally improved in recent games. I can concede that. But you're paying a club record fee for this defender, and he's not leading your defense.
Too little, too late. In my opinion, too little, too late. I'm not seeing enough from him, and I'm past the point of waiting for him. So
it's a gamble that Simeone needs to stop making because it keeps backfiring on him. It may not be, he may get away with it for 2 or 3 games, but Lenglet is averaging a red card or a penalty conceded every 7 games as an Atletico player.
And potential 2 or 3 penalties.
Even in our good games this year. And even in our good games this year, right? Even in this sort of golden week, he still manages, right, to give away goals. He's still playing the same script, even in the best moments we've had this year. It's not going away. And the frustrating thing, particularly about Clément Lenglet being there, is I cannot believe that he is there for any other reason that he comes basically as a bargain, right? That's
free transfer.
That's fine, but sometimes what's cheap ends up being costly. And when you're shipping goals, right, and when you're giving away red cards at that rate that you've just said, then the free transfer is not that free. That's the price tag.
Right. It seems to me the solution is fairly simple. I'm not sure why El Jolo and the coaching staff aren't seeing it. Put Hansko in central defense, put Ruggeri, even Galan. I would even be okay with seeing Javi Galan at left back. he's a serviceable option. I thought, what did you guys think of Galan getting subbed on at halftime and then getting taken off? That seemed to get some negative reactions from the player and the media as well. To me, it was emblematic of Simeone not knowing where to take the game.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show that, I mean, that moment Simeone did not have the answers, and the more he tweaked with the players he had on the field, the less he liked what he was seeing, and he didn't like where the game was heading towards. And did Atleti dodge a bullet by not conceding the second goal? I really don't know, because I think that this team has to get knee deep into disaster to kind of react. There has to be like a kind of knee-jerk reaction, and I'm just not seeing it with all these draws that seem to be like not so terrible as a loss. In my books, all of these games are losses. I mean, I count all of these draws as losses. You've been ahead of all of these teams, and you've managed to just mess up at such a huge level defensively that you haven't walked away from those games deserving nothing less than what you got. And maybe sometimes you even reap more reward than what you probably deserved.
I mean, how can it be that Atletico have scored first in 9 of 10 games this season and have won 4?
Right. Well,
how can this be?
And
right,
have
well,
given the other team the opportunity to come back in every single match.
Right.
I mean, Liga match. They've given the opportunity. They gave Rayo the opportunity. They gave Real Madrid the opportunity. They've had to pull off really heroic comebacks in 2 of those matches, or else we would be facing one of the most disastrous seasons ever recorded in the Simeone era, and I think that the consequences would be dire right now, and the danger of just derailing the whole season would be very, very close to coming to fruition.
Well, and a bunch of those draws, several of them, we fully deserve to lose. We fully deserve to lose. I mean, look, Rayo Vallecano doesn't have Julian, right? They don't have one of those, right? That's the difference there that night. In terms of what I saw, right, I'm right by the goal. They bled for every single ball that night. My Rayo friend, he was pissed off, right? How many times do you go to this stadium with this expensively assembled team, right? And everything is glossy and everything. And you walk away with your tiny little budget feeling like they got lucky tonight, these big boys, and as you say, with the Galan thing, it's interesting because Cholo, if you watch him during the game, he spends a lot of the game facing the subs and shouting at the subs, right? He does that for like half of the game. And I think especially if you've been hearing that, for an hour, let's say, and then you go on and you don't do the thing that he's been shouting about, and we've seen with players like Reinildo, for example, Cholo's not hugely forgiving when it comes to not following, his instructions to the letter. Maybe once, by the second time, there's going to be a problem.
But don't you feel that he does take jabs at certain players and he forgives everything to others? I've never seen a public jab at Lenglet. I've never seen a public jab at Lenormand for his poor performances. Right. Never a poor word against Sarloff. I've seen a lot of beating a dead dog with Javi Galan. I've seen it with Riquelme. I've seen it with you even saw it with Renan Lodi or with Reinildo. Right. I don't think and this is one of the things that I find disappointing in recent years, not only in this season with Simeone, that he doesn't treat all of his players the same. He has like different levels of respect to different players, and that is not only confusing, but it's very obvious. I guess that indoors and to the rest of the people that are just watching the game.
For sure. No, for sure. I mean, look, I think it's of the top 12 appearance makers in history for this club. I think 4 of them are still in that squad, or 3 of them are still in that squad. So to some degree, it's understandable he's not going to speak to Coque the way that he might to Riquelme, 2 years ago, let's say. But as you say, I've seen Nahuel Molina do things on that pitch where he seems
diabolical.
Diabolical, but you know, like I know in America they refer to it as getting the yips, right? It's not even the legs anymore. It's not even the ability. It's the fear is in his heart, and he's second guessing everything he's doing. And the whole stadium is on top of him, and they're booing him, so he can't control a ball. He can't pass a ball. I'm not saying he hasn't had decent games, because he has, but when he has a bad game, he's had the worst game that I've seen in that stadium. And as you say, it seems to be that Cholo keeps stum, whereas he will chew out other guys for seemingly a lot less. And I could see where that frustration would come from in the squad, for sure.
Performances that in any American team would get you cut the following day.
Right.
You would just lose your job immediately, even if I have to play without a striker for the next 3 months, because it's just utterly unprofessional. And this is the degree where we're getting. Is all of this acceptable? And I really think it's starting to become intolerable.
For sure. The word, ferocious, the word tenacious, coraje, corazón, these words that swirl around our club and that form part of our motto. When you look at that kind of meekness, I think a part of that are these brain-dead decisions. So I can accept a red card. I can accept us losing. What is very hard to stomach is such a stupid red card. This is a regalo. You're giving this away. And you're the centre back, like you say. You don't need to be Virgil van Dijk to think I can't get sent off, right? Like, okay, Soderloth gets sent off. This is a problem. You're the centre back, right? We're away from home, and you do that. Yeah, one thing is a red card, but it's the way the red card comes. That, to me, as you say, feels symptomatic of this unacceptable attitude. I don't know what the right word is, but it feels like attitude.
It feels like the gamble that Simeone is making, that Lenglet and Lenormand together make Atletico a better possession-based side. You're able to play with a higher line and get all these many technical attacking players that we've recruited the past 2 years, get them all on the ball and get them in positions to succeed. It's not worth the aggravation. It's not worth the red cards. It's what are you doing hauling down Fed on Jutgla at the halfway line and you're already on a yellow? Like
it feels like he's a 17. And it feels like he's a 17-year-old player, not a 30-year-old guy. You're playing. The referee of the game is Sotorado, and you know what he's going to do, and you know that he's going to be nitpicky with your yellow cards, not with the others. The other team was very, very fierce defensively and got how many? One yellow card. Baena got a yellow card on the first. First time he jumped, he didn't even touch the ball.
Yeah.
He just jumped for the
ball.
Elbow
anybody. He just jumped.
He didn't elbow anybody. Ridiculous. And you could see Barrios on the ground. Really, really tough challenge.
Borja should have been sent off more than once.
So
he was toeing the line for sure. Yeah.
So how can you know that? Because the players have that intel as they walk on the pitch. They know what they're walking into. Koke has probably lectured them of past matches with Sotogrado, and they know that they're going to get a yellow card for anything that they do. And he commits 2 incredibly stupid and useless and needless fouls, and he gets sent off in record time. It's just very, very frustrating. I would say it's an embarrassing performance by the player himself, but also he puts his team into such a bad position, which is something that Soderloth has done with the mistakes on field and that the defensive players have done repeatedly. I just can't understand how they continue to get opportunities to screw up, basically, because that's what they do at the end of the day.
Got to think that Carlos Martin can contribute more than like Sirloth is, for example. I got to think Hano Montanate, Taufik Seydu can maybe get some minutes here and there.
I think that
as a message to some of these senior players.
If you put Pubil as a goalkeeper, he's going to be more profitable for the team. And if you put Lenglet,
is Mark Pubil even alive? We should do like a wellness check on him, like a welfare check. Like, Mark, hello, are you okay? Sorry you're not playing. You have the potential to be an immensely impactful player for this Atlético de Madrid, but the coach doesn't really know you exist sometimes. Are you okay?
Well, you think you even get the name right. I mean, he's Pulic.
He called him Pulic on the radio.
Maybe he doesn't get called up, and he plays for the for the Paralympics.
A gem from Enrique Cedeto. Thinking Pubil is a Paralympic champion.
He's collecting them this year.
Only at Atletico. This is the tragic comic nature of this club.
Yeah.
So yeah, Atletico are fifth right now.
Yeah.
So fun.
Galan went on for Griezmann. Just help me make sense of this.
Yeah.
Baena came on for Javi Galan, which is like musical chairs. Gallagher came on for Koke, which seems like the only reasonable substitution. Molina came on in the 82nd minute for Giuliano. I really don't understand what the intention was.
To secure the points.
And Sorloth came on
the points
for Alvarez.
Right. Yeah, Alvarez was infuriating. Like Simeone has done this last season and this season too. If Alvarez isn't really sniffing around goal in the 80th minute, he'll take him off. Julian Alvarez is your best player. He should be there until the very end of the game.
Well, and he's dangerous even when he's not dangerous. Even when he's having a bad game.
That's how good he is.
Yeah.
You were talking about Carlos Martinez.
Knows this.
Raspadori, you have options. I mean,
Raspadori had a great game against Eintracht Frankfurt and doesn't sniff the pitch at Balaidos. Very hard to understand.
Yes, it is.
So it's a good thing we're on international break. It's a very good thing that
is it because this bitterness just lingers when you're on an international break. I hate losing before an international break because it like ruins the vibe of a week and a half.
I mean, it has given us the opportunity to listen to Marcos Llorente talk about chemtrails again while he's at Spain camp. He's
infrared coffee with butter before while he receives the sunlight.
He also says he doesn't wear sunglasses. No one should wear sunglasses.
Outdoors, indoors he has those blue blocker sunglasses that are ultra expensive. Yeah. Yellow, if he's I should wear yellow ones in this setting, and if I don't remember the other situation, you should wear red ones if if there's daylight and the lights are off and you're indoors. So I think
we love our conspiracy theorist king, don't we?
Cherry on the top. The only good thing going on right now is the Mateu Alemany news that I really don't know. Do you think that's a coup against Bucero's position in the team? Do you think it means that Bucero's getting ousted sooner than later? I would like to know your take on that.
Let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about Mateu Alemany. I, for one, I don't know how you guys feel. We're going to get to that, but I, for one, am pretty excited about this. Alemany has quite the track record from Mallorca, Valencia, Barcelona, laying the groundwork for these Barcelona teams that have won titles in recent years. At Valencia, he helped build a team that won the Copa del Rey, reached the Champions League twice. Mallorca won a Copa del Rey and signed Samuel Eto'o and qualified for the Champions League under his presidency. He told Florentino Perez no when Florentino wanted him to join Real Madrid in 2000.
That's just enough to sign him. I mean, rejecting Florentino Perez is an immediate yes in my book.
So Alemany is Ruben Arias said on his Twitch stream, I think yesterday, that Alemany is going to become like basically the voice of the club. That he is traveling with the team to and from away games.
Yeah. Do you remember the 2003, 2004? 2002, 2003. Well, that jersey is a 2002, 2003 jersey. A Copa del Rey final that Mallorca won. Mateu Alemany whipped up a set of forwards that is quite impressive. Pandiani playing next to Samuel Eto'o. That's very, very
Ibagaza, and it was Ibagaza.
And that's why Ibagaza went on to join Atlético Madrid, along with Mena, who played for who belonged to Atleti staff for a very, very long time. Mena managed to stay there, and Ibagaza had a terrible performance at Atletico. It was like a boiling Vieto and what was this guy that came from Benfica to Atletico Madrid? I tried to forget his name.
I know who you mean. Yeah. It was weird as well because you could see that he was a good player, but just everything bounced off him. It was so bizarre.
Yeah, there was a little bit of Molina there.
But back to Alemany really quickly, and then I want to get your guys' take on this. Pedro Foyana at Cadena reported that Alemany is going to be in charge of all the signings, transfers in and out. He's going to have the relationship, or try to have the relationship, with Simeone and the squad that Andrea Berta had. This was one of the conflicts that Butero and Simeone had, was they didn't have that buffer anymore. Andrea Berta was kind of the buffer as the sporting director between the front office and the dressing room. And Berta left for Arsenal, took all his scouts with him, signed the players that honestly we should have been signing, and signed them all for Arsenal. So Alemany is going to come in and kind of take over that role, bring his own scouts with him. Alemany really has a pretty stellar track record in terms of signings. There aren't very many misses on his resume. And this coincides with the seemingly imminent entry of Apollo Global Management into the club as first minority owners and then majority owners, probably in the next year or two. Nic, I want your thoughts on Alemany, man. This is a guy who has been in and around Spanish football in an executive role, trained as an attorney, but obviously very successful stints at a couple of major clubs, and now he's joining Atleti. What's your take on this?
So, cards on the table, my knowledge of this guy was fairly superficial. I knew his involvement in Spanish football. I think there was some flirtation with him going into the national federation for a while, but that didn't pan out. He was also seemingly meant to go to Aston Villa before. That didn't pan out. Listen, I think if you're bringing silverware to Mallorca with a good team, I think if you're bringing silverware to Valencia, I think it was as well, in that turbulent period that they were, they're still in, but that they were in, with the protests and the rest of it. I can tell you that I looked into him earlier on, and his time at Barcelona, which I think everybody could sort of, agree is successful. He, whilst he's there, he oversees a spend of 246 million euros, but he brings in 220 million euros also, which, when you consider a team like Barcelona, who is so, willing to sort of financially make schizophrenic decisions, this is not a bad balance. And crucially with him, he frees up, I think it's 170 million worth of bloated salary.
That's his specialty, the wage bill,
financial
margins.
So this is, I think 20 players come in under him, but it's 34 who leave under him. So listen, I think if I were him and I'm told that actually Deco is now in charge and not you, I would have left as well. What I understand is that he essentially, one of his briefs is for us to be able to sign players before they're huge stars so that they can become stars and we're not paying top dollar for them. And then also to maximize the players we have, not just in the first team, but also at lower levels as well. This would make sense that someone like Gilmarín would look at him and kind of see with big eyes, like, if we can get him in, we should get him in. So I don't know a massive amount, but like I say, if people like Rubén Uría and others are saying it's a positive thing, then I'll take that at face value. I guess where my questions come in are, this is an 18-month contract, which brings us roughly to the expiry of Cholo's contract. So then I guess all my questions wouldn't so much be for him, would be above him, where does this leave us in relation to Apollo? Where does this, and I'm not talking about these pharaonic projects and Red Bull and shopping centers and the rest of it. I'm talking about the team. I'm talking about the club. This is a man who, ironically, unlike his father, who you couldn't get Jesus Gil away from a microphone, this guy doesn't say a lot. I would love to know, much like in the UK where you have AGMs every year and there is some presidential accountability, I would like to hear him say, the arrival of this man means this, right? If Apollo come in and buy more shares than I have right now, it will mean that. The kind of unacceptable thing in 2025 is that all of this is behind the shadows and all of this is kind of whispered. And this guy on Instagram says this, but this guy on TikTok said that. It's 2025, man. We don't live in 17th century Venice, right? With secret doors and the rest. I think as Atléticos, we deserve clarity, and something like this man arriving, I feel like is a good chance for those kind of cultural changes to begin. I think that's what we deserve.
Ricky, before I get to you, let's provide a little bit of context as to not the butting of heads between Alemany and Bucero, but what this relationship, this coexistence could look like. While Alemany is going to take on day-to-day operations, be that liaison between the front office and the dressing room, handle all the signings, travel with the team, etc. Bucero is taking a step back, it would appear. It sounds like he is going to be handling the franchise building as the director of football, take on the bigger picture approach, bureaucratic, legal matters. The women's team also comes under his purview, while Alemany handles the first team, Atlético Madrid. You're casting some skepticism on this. Tell me why.
I just think that there's been a lot of bad press from the supporter side. And what started as a very promising transfer window from Bucero and the exit of Berta has, I think the cards have been stacked against Bucero, because the moment he ran out of cash or ran out of momentum convincing Gilmarín to shell out the cash, the street cred diminished to practically zero. Right now, Bucero is one of the most resented figures in Atlético Madrid for not being able to pull off the transfer window that Atlético fans thought that they deserved, and that the Spanish press leaked was going to be twice as significant as it actually was.
Mm-hmm.
So in that
200 million net spend,
exactly.
I'm never going to forget that.
In that Game of Thrones situation, I don't know if Alemany arriving to Atlético Madrid is just the anticipation of Bucero being beheaded and just being ousted from his position.
Is the palace intrigue. The timing is very curious. After the window has concluded, kind of halfway between the summer window and the winter window, the 18-month contract would give him 3 transfer windows to build a team pending a possible renewal or extension. Alemany didn't stay all that long at Valencia or Barcelona. There were some problems behind the scenes at both of those clubs institutionally that caused him to leave.
Huge hits and misses with his signings. I mean, let's remember that he signed Lewandowski or Rafinha, but he also signed Kessie or Eric Garcia, or players that I don't think have had the impact. Bellerin, Marcos Alonso. There have been really
that's true. I forgot about those.
Yeah, there have been some signings that have been that have been kind of shocking and out of character for Barcelona to pursue those kind of players. Dani Alves came back during Alemany's tenure. I can imagine that they've called him in for 2 reasons: to save face in front of this new investor that is going to want to have someone responsible for the future signings, and what Gilmarín is an expert in doing, shielding any possible responsibility that he has to bear for future problems. So that double-sided thing leaves Bucero's role kind of empty, because you were saying president of the franchise. I mean, is that really a necessary role? I know
is that really a job?
It feels like one of those really fancy job titles that just hide that they've just made up a post that they didn't know how to fire you, so they just promoted you.
It's interesting because I didn't assign Bucero a ton of blame for the summer. I guess it just kind of highlights how schizophrenic social media has made everyone, that Bucero was getting hailed as a hero in July, and then in August, just everything's terrible.
He was the biggest of villains.
Yeah, yes. I mean, and given the Madridista past, given his history at Real Madrid and with Florentino Perez, I guess he was a natural target.
That was going to backfire sooner or later. The Madrid during the 2016 Champions final,
during the 2014 final,
those tweets are going to come back to bite you and bite you in the ass.
Yeah, So it may be something of a sidelining. It's something of a diversion for Mateu Alemany with his track record. On the other hand, he did have a few misses, but on the other hand, he did sign Rafinha and he did sign Jules Koundé for Barcelona too.
Are you aware that when Bucero was touted as the substitute for Andrea Berta, Mateu Alemany was also in the mix?
Yes.
And
yes.
that Hilmarin was presented with a plan to make Simeone more accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that information was leaked, and Alemany didn't get the job. Bucero got the job, and the rest is history. So, is this like having second thoughts about that accountability towards the first team coach? Because, I mean, it does seem to be good news because you're signing the best of the best, and there are doubts about how much of the signings that Bucero actually managed to pull off were already previously worked operations that Berta started and that Bucero just completed. So,
like we knew, that had been in the works for several months. We knew Johnny Cardoso had been in the works for months.
Had been in the works for an entire season. Baena had already been in the works for an entire season. Cardoso started to sound more than half a year ago, before the end of the season. So, I mean, I could imagine that Atlético Madrid is just shuffling the cards around to give the keys of the car to Alemany and look for some place for Bucero where he doesn't get in the way.
I mean, just Nick, and I want your thoughts on this too before we wrap this up. The timing is also curious because of all the spending that we've seen the last 2 summers. Why wouldn't you have hired Alemany 2 summers ago to lead this rebuild instead of having this weird arrangement with Berta and Bucero last summer, and then, or 2 summers ago, I guess at this point, and then last summer just leaving it in Bucero's hands, and then having the shit show that turned out to be August? Just why now? Why on an 18-month contract? If you've already signed 14 players, spending 364 million euros to do so, isn't this Alemany's specialty? Isn't he the one with the scouts and the resources and the financial knowledge to pull off these deals in a better way than Berta and Bucero could? I don't know. The timing is just really weird. I'm glad Alemany is here. I think he's going to do a good job. This is the kind of appointment that Atletico, a club of Atletico's stature and caliber, has to be making, like everywhere. You have to do things in an elite way when you're a club with this kind of demand. But the timing is very curious. As with most things at this club, it's curious.
Right. It's kind of on brand, right? Like weirdly on brand. I would have, just imagining, let's assume that, these Americans come in. I'm not sure how comfortable they are with so much power being in the hands of someone like Cholo. Maybe this is a kind of LinkedIn friendly buffer. I'm not exactly sure. I did think it was curious that when this is presented by the club, they kind of nervously, kind of make clear that we're going to be friends. They complement each other. And I think at one point, Alemany actually says, "Of course we can get on. Of course we can work together." It's just like, it's kind of like saying you're a nice guy. If you have to say you're a nice guy, then it maybe. Yeah, I think you're right. The timing here is that there's a question mark there. But it's kind of going back to what I was saying earlier. Everything in the boardroom at this club comes with question marks.
Everything
comes with question marks. And what do you expect when there is this kind of Borgia, cloak and dagger backroom approach to running this club, which is because my daddy owned it, right? I own it, and that's the end of the conversation. That's the end of the conversation. But like I say, it's 2025, and
Hilmarin is the ultimate nepo baby. He's made it all the way up to the Forbes list, to the top of the Forbes list in Spain.
I mean, look, to give you an example of this guy, and it's not even a personal thing against him necessarily. I will say, in the last 3 or 4 years, the only time we've seen him in the stadiums, he comes down to greet the fans, and he's booed by everybody in there, and you son of a bitch, give us back and the rest of it, you know, which almost makes me think like he knows this is going to happen, and he kind of gives it to us, you know, as like a little present. But where I live in an area of Madrid called La Latina, it's quite close to the river, where of course the old stadium used to be. And if you walk along there now, where the actual stadium stood, there is a kind of laughably sad little park with a tiny little stone plaque. What there is also there are these luxury flats that cost roughly double what I pay. They're mostly empty. That's money that has gone into this man's pocket. Nobody else connected to the club, to him and his family. And it should not be forgotten by anybody who loves Atleti that is not right. That is wrong, right? Our old cathedral, which, okay, maybe it has to go. And okay, the new stadium is fantastic and the rest of it. But my fondest memories, the love I have for this club is so enshrined in that place. And it went and it was replaced by luxury flats. I think it's kind of symbolic of what that man stands for today, you know. So, as you say, the ultimate Nepo baby, I think that's fair.
Kind of says it all, doesn't it? That you've replaced such a holy site in our club's history, the Calderon, with luxury flats. Just a small commemorative plaque, and all the money is funneled to the Hill family.
Right.
Of course it is. And
you know what's funny about that as well is if you look at the buildings that his father put up in places like Marbella on the south coast.
Right.
It even looks like the kind of buildings that his father would used to build back in the 70s and the 80s and so on. So, you know, whilst what I understand is that they're very different men, you know, for example, this guy, you know, he understands a hell of a lot more about football than Jesus Gil ever did. You know, I think quite openly people knew the guy didn't know much about football. The son does, you know. I think he's a lot quieter. He does not love the limelight the way a dad did. You know, you put a microphone in front of Don Jesus, you ask him a question. To him, it wasn't a question. To him, it was a springboard to leap off into a new anecdote, you know, which invariably it would be funny, but it would have nothing to do with the question you asked.
Could also be racist or, you know, populist.
It might be racist. I mean, but this is the thing about him is that he would say, you know, at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm racist, and at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm not. At 11 o'clock, I'm a fascist, and at midday, I'm a communist. It's sort of Trump before Trump.
Populism 101.
Yes.
100%. 100%, you know. So I think he kind of, like nobody else, he knew that if you could charm people, you could get away with pretty much anything. And he was genuinely a funny man, you know, far more than someone like Trump or Berlusconi or these men after him who sort of live in that mold. He was genuinely sort of quite witty. But even to this day, if you talk to Atleti fans and he comes up in conversation, they'll say, yeah, you know, well, he was corrupt, but at least he was honest about it. You know, he would say, yeah, I put up my buildings, but then you can put up your buildings as well, you know. So this is where we are with Atleti is often
honest about stealing. Honor among thieves.
Just want honesty. Just want transparency. I don't care if you rob me blind. Just tell me you're doing it.
You just do it to my face.
That's all.
You know? So,
yeah.
So
I don't know if you know this story about Gil, but he would call into the radio stations a little bit like Trump does to Fox News.
Yes.
And they would ask him spicy questions like, did you pull off this or that crime? And he would calculate if there was a statute of limitations in terms of years, and then he would tell it. He would confess to it, say, yeah, I got away with this one. You can't catch me for this one. So yeah, that just goes to show the figure. Before they slam me in the comments, the player I couldn't come up with a name because I've intentionally forgotten about him is Nico Gaitan. That's I think Nico Gaitan, Vieto, and Molina.
You see,
it's funny. Down.
It's funny because I thought you were talking about Joao Felix.
When I saw Caño Ibarraza play, no, because it was like the Argentinian spirit. You were hoping to get like the Argentinian prime, and you didn't get the prime steak there for sure.
God, Nico Gaitan. I remember I was
from the floor.
I was so excited for Gaitan. We had been linked with him for years. And like it came out like I think the day before the 2016 Champions League final. I remember David Medina tweeting about it, that Atletico are going to sign Nico Gaitan after the final from Benfica. And I was like, let's go. This guy might be the missing piece. I was young then. I was young and ill-informed then.
Maybe, Jeremy, for future episodes, we can open the door to talking about something that's very painful to talk about. Oblak, the significant decline this season. He's the least relevant goalkeeper in Primera right now.
Yes.
He's the least relevant goalkeeper.
We've been talking about that
with the lowest amount of saves for his side. And if anybody has almost unlimited credit, it's Jan Oblak.
Yeah.
But we do have to start thinking about what if this is a real decline of Jan Oblak? What comes next?
And with his salary, where is he going to go? Oblak has been the highest earner in the team for close to a decade at this point. Where he's going to go to the Middle East. He's not going to renegotiate anything, nor should he. I'm a firm believer that if the club agrees to pay you a certain amount of money, you don't have to renegotiate with them. Sal Niguez lived by that rule. Oblak is living by that rule. It cannot be the stat. You know the stat I saw this week? It cannot be that Atletico have conceded 14 big chances in 8 games, which is a pretty respectable rate. Not even 2 a game. Oblak has shipped 10 goals. It can't be. The lack of command of his area, the lack of authority. I get he's not confident in Beren and Lenglet. I'm not confident either, buddy. And I'm an ocean away, and I'm not confident in what I'm seeing. But
he has the biggest disaster artist in front of him, so it just adds to the sorry for pardon my French, the shit show that's happening. But it all combines to this situation that we have in our hands right now.
Yeah,
it's funny. It's funny you mention Oblak because where I sit is right behind his goal. You know, we call it like the Oblak fart zone because if he farts, you're gonna know about it, right? But you know, if you're there for 3 years, even within that 3-year period, right? But not even getting into his kind of godlike peak days, even within this 3-year period, that decline is noticeable. And we've been talking about it all season. Right, we're only 8 weeks in, and like you say, there is that uncomfortable nature to it because of what he's done for us. But when you're talking about the performance of the defenders, the goalkeeper also has some involvement in the way that they perform. You look at someone like Janko, and it's not just his power and his speed; it's his IQ, his awareness is very strong. These other 2 guys, I think, are weaker on that, and I think that's where someone like Oblak, it does behoove him not just to shout a bit and say when something's not good enough. Talk to these guys for 90 minutes. Talk to them, right? Someone like Lenglet, is going through a bad phase. If you're the goalkeeper, you've been there for 1,000 years. You step up and you say, I'm going to start talking to this guy the next game. I'm going to, every single play, I'm in his ear. I know that's not necessarily his style. He's not, necessarily one of those Premier League style goalkeepers, but I do think that you do have a relationship with these 2 guys in front of you, and week in, week out, I'm close enough to hear it. There's very little communication, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I would like more said between them.
Very last thing, speaking of the defense, Jose Jimenez, you guys know Jose Jimenez. He is actually going to start, it would appear, in this friendly against Inter Milan in Libya on Friday night. I personally have not been counting.
That way we have him out for another 15 games.
Right.
Now
he's going to play 46 minutes.
Come off with an injury, and we'll see. See you in February. Thanks, man.
It's like I have Almada traveling half the way around the world, fresh out of his injury, just to cross my fingers and hope that he doesn't get injured on his way back. I have Baena, fresh out of an injury. They're traveling with the Spanish national team, and now you start Jimenez. Like, okay, what else? What else? What other surprises are we going to get when the international break is over?
I mean, personally, I haven't been counting on Jimenez like at all since his injury over the summer. He's kind of been out of the reckoning for me. He's obviously he's El Comandante. He's Jose Jimenez. He's one of our captains. He's Josema. He's part of the furniture here, but the injury record has just always been a problem. This calf injury, this mystery calf injury, has kept him out since the middle of June. we talked about the chaos in defense, the lack of stability there, the lack of communication, especially as Nic alluded to. Would Josema coming back make any difference? Well, let's say in a perfect world, he comes back and he's healthy for a string of like 8 or 9 games in a row. Does this make a huge difference to Atletico and Atletico's possible fortunes this season, given what we're seeing with Lenormand and Lenglet?
I mean, I would say it has to be yes. I mean, honestly, the way things are right now, I think if I could step in and at least talk a bit more than Lenglet does, right? But let alone a guy of that caliber. I mean, when he's right and when he's healthy, you do see the difference, especially up close. You do see the difference it makes. We are staking a lot on not a great bet, though, if that's the case. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of years ago. I did a season ticket at Arsenal, and I saw Abu Diaby play, and I walked away from that game thinking that's one of the best midfielders I've ever seen play football in my life. And then a week later, he broke his leg, and then he was out for another year. And that was the story, unfortunately, of his career. The problem wasn't the football. The problem was his health. And so if you can play 15 games a year, that's what your role is in the squad. Maybe we could talk in the future about him maybe being a secondary or an assistant manager. In the future, I can imagine him doing something like that if he's open to it. But is it good enough to, if you're the third captain and you're playing 15 games a season and that's your max, and it's not been that way for 1 season or 2 seasons, it's been that way for a long time. I think this is expressly why we see Clément Lenglet or anybody of a lower ability. It's not really his fault. He's not better. But it is the club's fault for giving him 35 games every year because the third captain is out, because he's always out. That doesn't change. So what are we doing here? Are we praying for miracles, or are we accepting reality? And I'm not saying the answer is let's get rid of him, but I do think that the plan cannot be we have a great defender when he's healthy, knowing that he's not going to be healthy for 30 games, and then we go to a very mediocre defender. And that's where we are.
Yeah. And it's sad because Josema's been here for so long, and I think it's only Jimenez and Koke are the only ones who have been on both league title winners. Right. Just those two. And that's special. But I guess we'll end it here and kind of tie it together with Alemany. This is supposed to be Mateu Alemany's specialty, the wage bill. You're talking about problematic contracts. John Oblak's contract has long been very problematic for the club. It makes it go down easier when he's winning the Zamora Trophy, but when he's not playing well, it's an even bigger problem. Jimenez, Koke, Griezmann, these are all players who are getting older, who have been here a long time, who are making a lot of money. This is supposed to be Alemany's wheelhouse. So that's going to be a very interesting storyline to monitor over the second half of this season and into next summer. Guys, we're going to leave it there on this edition of That Atleti Podcast. Nic Obregón, man, it's been great to have you here in the studio with us. Tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about where they can find you and your work.
If you Google my name, Obregón Books, you'll find my books, my podcasts, Nic Obregón. If you like mysteries, if you like true crime podcasts, and if you like the occasional article where I complain about Jesus Gil, then I'm your guy.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for inviting me, guys. It's honestly been a real pleasure to kind of exercise some demons.
Jeremy, before we go, we do have to we do have to schedule talking about Atlético Madrid Femenino, open the Champions League with a 0-6 at St. Poltens.
Yes, they did.
They're scheduled to visit Manchester United on the 16th of October. They're scheduled to receive Manchester United Alcalá that would be next Thursday. Yes, next Thursday at 6:45. So I'll probably make the most and try to be there. So maybe that same night we can talk about Atlético Madrid Femenino and how 100%. They are combining very, very exciting performances with a few mishaps that are happening at the start of the season. Let's see if we have a promising season ahead of us in the Femenino side.
they're off to a really good start. I've been keeping up with them, and we will definitely talk about them in more detail next week. Thank you all for listening to That Atleti Podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching here on YouTube. In addition, you can listen to the audio form of this podcast if you really don't want to look at our faces on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you prefer to listen. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at That Atleti Podcast. IntoTheCalderon.com, where you can read my work on Atletico. Facebook and Twitter at Into the Calderon, on Twitter at JB Beren and at Ricky AM. Until next time, adios.